Thank you, sir. Let me introduce our guest speaker. IVJYOT Oberoi is an MPA candidate at the London School of Economics and Political Science. He is currently heading the Department Journal of Public Policy called Public Sphere Journal as its editor-in-chief. Before LSE, he worked as a journalist in India with his bylines appearing in The Hindu and the Greater Kashmir. His interest lies in impact investing, especially using outcome-based instruments such as impact bonds to enhance public service delivery. He is a strong supporter of universal basic income and he hopes to contribute to the SDG sector through these innovative instruments. He also completed his undergrad at the SRM University, Chennai. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Fawzia, and thank you everyone for tuning up in. I'd really apologize in advance if at all my voice is a bit miffed up. I just contracted COVID a couple of days back, so still on the recovery stage, but it's still mild, so no problem in that space. So that all of you could, take out more from this session, what I would believe in, I would be keeping my presentation real short, and I would stimulate you to ask as many questions so that I'm able to clear most of your doubts. As Fawzia said, I definitely didn't know that I would be landing up in the public policy sphere or public administration sphere, because back in India, I graduated as a civil engineer. Back in my time, there were only a couple of professions where you would want to enter: medical, lawyer, or engineer. So you really don't have that guidance who would be suggesting when to join and where to join. Subsequently, after completing my civil engineering, I realized it was not my cup of tea. Even though I worked a year for DHFL, that is Demand Housing Finance Limited, I realized that something was lacking. That job, the benefit which you get, the personal meaning attached to it, that you're contributing to the society. So that is something which I really wanted to work in. Hence, I switched gears to journalism. Now, even making a switch from engineering to journalism was definitely an honorary start, because no single newspaper would be employing an engineer. So I did a couple of internships, and then I landed up a job with the Greater Kashmir in Srinagar, because my roots are from Kashmir. And after working for Greater Kashmir, that's when I realized that this is really something what I want to do. Then I started working with the Hindu, and right before London School of Economics, I was working with ANI, that is Asian News International. Now, my journey has been divided into a couple of three parts. So this is a mistake which I hope others are able to learn. A career where they are not interested working in. But I would say, take that jump. Have the courage to really step into the career which you really want to do. Definitely the transition will be very difficult. But once you take that step, trust me, half the battle is already won. And whatever path you pick from here, it's only going to be easy. I know most of you are very much interested over here in knowing about the admissions process for the LSE, the finances and the scholarships, and what you can do to prepare to enter the public policy sphere, and what all you need to be aware of before you're coming to London or Europe or in Toronto or Northern America or anywhere. So to start with, first of all, I would request you all to have these clear differences in mind. For example, what is the difference between public administration? What is the difference between public policy? What is the difference between the social policy? And I would really want you to, think about it, like where your interest lies. Because although all these departments can be considered very similar, but trust me, there are certain things which are very, very different when you compare three of them. And even when you're taking a course, there are courses which are available at different levels. For individuals who just graduated and who are looking for the masters, but at the same time, there are other people who would be having a job experience of 2 to 3 years in the public policy sphere. And at the same time, there will be other individuals who would want to change their career. And I would call them as a swinger, for example, me, myself. So in LSE, there are 2 courses per se. Like one will be at the public policy NPT, that is the Masters in Public Policy, and that is a course which you will be taking up if you are an experienced professional. But at the same time, if you are entering right into this sphere, I think the course which you will be taking up will be Masters in Public Administration, the course which I am doing right now, because I was not an experienced public policy professional, and that's why taking up a course which basically gives you training about all the basics and all the introductions is definitely what you would want to do. Now, public administration is a 2-year course. Now, this is something which is different to most of the courses which you will be finding in UK, because in UK, most of the courses are only 1-year courses. And why public administration has been taken a 2-year course? It's because you learn everything from political science, from economics, from econometrics, and that's when your rigorous training begins. But at the same time, if you are an experienced professional and who would just want to have speed up your career in the public policy, and at the same time where you would want to be working up after your degree, then definitely MPT, that is Masters in Public Policy, would be the course you would want to chase. Now, coming to the admission processes, especially for London School of Economics, because this was one of the only university where I had applied to, because at the same time, you really need to have back in the mind that all these universities, they really cost a bomb. I mean, in the tuition fees, and at the same time, the residence fees and the fees which you would be paying for other co-curricular activities, and at the same time, living expenses. So I would suggest you to make a graph, do a SWOT analysis of all the universities which you pick, and have advantages and disadvantages of all these institutes and universities lined up, and then take your decision. For example, for me, it was very important that I'm trained in the basic economics and econometrics models, because these are the models which basically gives you a causal inference of whatever is happening in the policy sphere. And that's why I really eyed for the London School of Economics public policy course, because it is a specialized university when you compare it to other universities. And most of the courses over here, they have a mixture of economics and political science, because that's what they specialize in. As you know, that LSE is a specialized university, so you won't be finding science courses, or you won't be finding any other STEM courses, but it's only dedicated to liberal arts and at the same time social sciences and economics, and that's why it ranks quite high in these subjects, because of the specialization which is associated with it. So what is the admission process for LSE? There are a couple of courses which will require you to take a GRE exam or a GMAT exam, but at the same time, there will be a couple of courses which won't require you to take a GRE exam. And all of this information is available on the London School of Economics course sheet. For example, if you want to pick up IISPPR, like for example, International Social and Public Policy in London School of Economics, so you just need to do a quick Google search, write LSE course and the name, and you will be taken automatically to the course page, and there you can see what all are the criteria or what all are the necessities or the prerequisites that you need to join this course. And the next thing, I think, which is one of the most important thing, is writing a good SOP. Now, all of you have a different story, and that's how you really need to think about your SOP, because these admission individuals, they are already tired of reading many monotonous SOPs. For example, I remember a couple of my friends, they hired an agency to write an SOP. But if you do, I mean, there are again many disadvantages associated with it, because these people, they already back in their conscious, they already have written multiple SOPs, and which gives a more repetitive space in this sphere. So how you can make your SOP unique is by having your own individual story, and starting with it and telling the examiner that why you think you are a good candidate and what are your strengths and weaknesses. Now, I know what I'm saying might sound very vague, but believe me, this works. So what you need to do is take a pen and paper, write out on the sheet why you think you are a unique person, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, what makes your character very unique. And this is exactly what the admission officers are looking for. And at the same time, if you have done any other experience, whether it is in the form of internships or whether it is in the form of volunteering for certain organizations, please do put it in your SOP, because these are the things which the admission officers really want. And another interesting fact about the European universities or American universities is they really don't care if you had a break year or a gap year in your career. But if you are able to explain them that if you are working for an NGO or if you're taking another training at the same time, they would really appreciate that. So for SOP, what I would basically suggest you the structure, you start with your own personal story. For example, how I started basically, I basically talked about the UN SDG goals and how I started with a basically anecdote. Like there was this water aid advertisement which I had seen a couple of years back on YouTube, and it was a very simple solution of a water aid, like water credits. And that simple solution was basically scaled up to make a paradigm change in the whole sector. And that's how it influenced me, and that's the reason why I really wanted to step into the social impact sphere or SDG sector. And if you are able to connect your story with such anecdotes or such small, simple examples, and then bring your education and your professional experience, and again end up on an anecdote, trust me, it automatically will be woven into a simple yet interesting story. Next, coming to the scholarships, yeah, now this is the most trickiest part because believe me, even an individual, most of us from South Asian countries, we really aim for those scholarships. And when you compare with the difference of income scale between such European countries and the countries and South Asian countries, it's huge. And what I would suggest is like there are a couple of scholarships which you can start looking right away. Unfortunately, at my time, most of the scholarships got cancelled because of COVID-19. So I really had to, depend on LSE's internal scholarship programs, which you can also apply once you are admitted to the LSE. So even if you don't get any scholarship and at the same time you think your finances are taken care of, you can still come to LSE and apply for different scholarships which are present here. For example, the COVID support scholarship, graduate support scholarships. But of course, if you are able to find a scholarship even before you take your admissions, it's definitely going to be very beneficial. So a couple of scholarships which I can name are ILATS, Commonwealth, Chevening, then Great Scholarship, and there are different scholarships which are also started by various state governments. For example, I had one of my friends from Madhya Pradesh. So there was this socio-economic program which was run by the state where they supported students to go and study abroad. So all states also have these specialized programs which you definitely would want to check. And then at the same time, keep visiting the British Council website and write about the scholarships which are available for the international students. There are many scholarships which keep on coming and which keep on going, but definitely checking out British Council page will be very useful. And at the same time, there is a consultancy services called SIUK, that is called as Study in UK. And it is a government-run, the UK government-run consultancy services, and it is absolutely free of cost. So you don't have to go to Leverage EDU or you don't have to go other, big names which are you basically, there only for the money. And at the same time, use the SIUK. It's a free UK government services and it is also an education service. I have nothing against this consultancy and career consultancy organizations, but at the same time, I'm just talking about from my own personal experience. Next, talking about the policy sphere and in LSE, I mean, of course, so 60 to 70% of the students here, they are international students, and this is what basically gives an advantage to this university, because in most of the universities you will be having at least 50 to 60 local students, but in this case LSE has 60% of international students. So especially when you are taking part in debates or any other policy discussions, you get a point of view from all these continents and from all these countries. You get to discuss about certain problems which were there in Bangladesh, but at the same time, a similar problem existed in Latin America, which you would only be getting to know through these discussions. And the solutions which were used in such continents, can they be scaled up the Indian Institute? For example, I give you a very interesting story. As I said, like I'm very much interested in working with impact investment space. and using outcome-based instruments. I'm pretty much sure most of you people wouldn't be even knowing what impact bonds are, because even I got introduced to impact bonds a couple of years back. Now, even though the impact bond was a concept which was initiated in UK, even though when India took the concept and replicated it to at least to 50,000 to 60,000 beneficiaries, India became as a sandbox policy for these instruments. Because in Europe, at most, you will be having 400 to 500 individuals who will be the beneficiaries of such instruments and socio-economic programs. But in India, the number of beneficiaries are 50,000 to 60,000. So we used to laugh when we used to, know about how many beneficiaries are there in Europe, and when you compare it with the Indian beneficiaries, who would be around maybe around a lakh or something. So India became as a sandbox policy, because once it realized that whatever policies or such programs, if they can work in India, they can be replicated in other part of the world as well. So definitely talking to other people and learning from their experiences, they really, really help a lot. And lastly, what I would suggest is like you having clear knowledge of the differences and the cleavages between the public policy, the public administration, the social policy, IR, philosophy, and certain socio-economic courses which are mingled in the public policy sphere. I know I said this in the beginning as well, but I'm repeating it again because this becomes very important. Because if for example, if any individual would be having a background in political science, for him or her, studying public administration with a public policy major or with a political science major, many things will be very repetitive in this case. So knowing where you want to land up, knowing where you want to work up in the individuals, you can do a reverse engineering. For example, the simplest exercises down to 5 years, check where you want to be, or down to 10 years, where you want to be. Do you want to work in an international organization? Do you want to work with United Nations? Do you want to work with ICRC? Check the role where you fit in, and what are the qualifications, what are the education qualifications which are required for these organizations, and check which universities you think you would fit in. And after checking the universities, check the courses which is like really tailored according to your interest. Also, if there would be any questions, please keep interrupting me in between, because I would love to have know your point of view, and maybe your questions would be more in detail than what I would be giving as a general advice. If any questions. Okay, perfect. So as I said about it, further talking about the life in London, I mean, yes, it is definitely quite an expensive place too.
Sorry to interrupt. I had a question.
Yeah, go on.
Could you? I was
one second.
looking at.
We will have the Q&A after the session. Okay, please just rest.
All right, sure. So, talking about the life in London, in fact, yeah, it is a very expensive place to live. I mean, the average cost of living in London basically is 1,100 to 1,300 pounds. And before getting admissions in such universities, you need to show a certain amount in your bank. So, if this is as a news to individuals, what I would ask you all to start preparing for these finances, and these finances can be in the form of loans, at the same time scholarships, your family money, but they need to be in your bank account locked for at least 1 month or 2 months before you apply to the organizations. So a quick back of the envelope calculation is like 1,300 into 9 months, because they seek money for at least a year, and that's the amount of money which you need to keep in your bank account. And that can be again kept in the form of loans, or at the same time in the form of your fixed deposits. But there are certain things which they don't accept, such as like stocks, and at the same time other securities. Those will not be accepted at all. Next thing, again, very important thing comes your GRE score or your IELTS score, because again there will be certain courses which will be asking you to get at least a 320 or a 315 in your GRE. For example, if you are eyeing for a master's in economics, but at the same time you really would want to switch to policy later, then these are the courses which will require you to take a GRE examination. IELTS examination is a mandatory examination, whereas GRE is a voluntary examination, which might not be needed for certain courses. For IELTS, you need to get at least a band score of 7 to 7.5 for most of the universities in London, which is fairly an easy examination. But what I would suggest you take a mock examination or 1 or 2 examination if you really would want to come to the European countries that demand such exams. And after whatever score you get, maybe then decide if you want any training in IELTS, or maybe if you think that you are ready to go, then definitely, again, as I say, there is no need. There is no need to take such training if you think that you are very comfortable with IELTS examination. And at the same time, not just IELTS, for English language testing, there are other examinations as well, such as TOEFL. And a couple of other European governments have also started their examinations, which you can look for. But one thing you need to be really, really cautious about, that such exams have a validity. I mean, for example, IELTS, it is only valid for 1 year. So after taking this examination, you really need to have an admission also from a university within that 1 year. Otherwise, you'll have to take the same examination again the following year. I know, yeah, that's really, really irritating, because so-called Western organization, they think that like, if we are getting trained ourselves in English, or at the same time, if we are training ourselves in any other language, we have the capacity of forgetting it in 1 year, which is absolutely nonsense. It's just a marketing gimmick of making money, but again, it is what it is. So you really have to follow the rules and everything. Second thing, you really need good references for applications, and how you get the references. If you're working in any NGOs, or at the same time, if you are working with any professor, keep talking to the professor. Make sure the professor knows your name and like the work which you have done, and you will need at least 2 references to fill in. And these references after SOP really, really matter, and they have a weighted average of at least 30, 35 to 40% of your admissions, because they assume that these are the references where you have worked closely with, and hence whatever they are talking about you, or whatever personality they are showing you as, it definitely will matter. And because of the COVID and because of the other situations, what I would suggest you is to start early, because most of the admission processes require a visa in the end, and visa processes are taking a lot of time. And it is because of this, like, many students also missed a couple of months last year because they couldn't get a visa, and hence starting your cycle anywhere near to September or August definitely will land up into a safer place. But if you are applying only for institutions after January or February, you will be having 2 disadvantages. First, most of the scholarships deadlines would have already passed away. And at the same time, you will be hearing from the universities quite late, and because of which your visa application will get affected. So 2 things to keep in mind. Number 1, start early, only to get more stake at scholarships, and at the same time, so that you land up in your country of your interest in safe time, so that you are able to start your examinations. Start your college on time. And one thing be ready to is experience is an absolute change in education experience what we have been happening. For example, I remember as an engineer, if there are a couple of engineers, I am pretty sure they would agree to this. We just used to study a couple of weeks, or not even weeks, a couple of days before the examination. And that's all. I mean, this was the marking scheme, because whatever we used to learn and whatever we used to, glorify, we just used to vomit it on the piece of examination. And that's how we used to pass most of our examinations. And this was a paradigm shift for me as well, because the experience here is very, very different. You need to be on toes right from the first week. You need to be participant in most of the debates, in most of the discussions happening in school, because of course there are participatory marks as well, where you need to participate to fetch certain amount of marks. And there is no concept of rote learning. You really need to understand the concept and apply in the form of examination. So even to my last examinations, because of COVID, had a timeline of 24 hours. It said like we had a couple of questions and you had to write your examinations within 24 hours. Now it does sound very easy and people are like, "Arey, 24 घंटे में तो मैं तो बहुत कुछ कर लूँगा." Like I'll do a lot in 24 hours. But believe me, even after preparing for 6 to 9 months, I almost took 20 hours to complete that examination, even with my open books and even with my lectures available to me. So yeah, understanding the concepts and everything definitely takes up time. So I'm not trying to scare you, but it is an experience in itself, and you will just understand the differences in the education sector. And a very simple example I would be giving here is about, since you all are public policy enthusiasts, about the civil services examination. When you compare it with the UK civil services examination and the Indian civil services examination, you will understand. Even though the Indian civil services examination is an inheritance from the British colony, yet the Britain were the first country to change or reform the civil services examination, and India is still lagging behind. Maybe because of the IAS, IPS or IFS lobby, or maybe because of other lobbies which are forcing them not to take reform, but that is a debate for some other time. Indian civil services, again, it's a complete rote learning. So, like, for example, whatever you are learning, if any of you would have written any civil service examination, you will understand that you really need to learn everything. Even though, yes, you study a lot, but again, it comes out how much you can learn. It is not about application. And for policy solutions, you really need an applicant mind. And that is the reason why even in the Indian government space, many posts are being opening up, which we call as lateral entries, or as in the form of consultants. So every state, they're having their chief minister's governance program, and at the same time other governance programs where you would be learning about the policy sphere. So what I would also suggest for individuals who would want to take some direct experience before applying to other institutions is keep an eye on such policy internships, and at the same time, for example, in Haryana, there is this program called Chief Minister's Good Governance Program. In Delhi, there is again a Chief Minister's Fellowship program. Then again, there is this LAMP Fellowship, and then there is this Gandhi Fellowship. Teach for India is again a very good fellowship. So all these internships, they basically prepare you. They give you a very analytical mind, which you can apply in such institutions, and maybe return back to your country, or maybe work with some international organization in a much comprehensive manner. Again, since I said I will be giving last 20 to 25 minutes of questions, so I'll be just ending up this very quickly. I mean, I'm happy that the discussion about public policy and public administration has started in India. Because back in my time when I was in college or when I was in university, I didn't even know about this field. Even though many of us really want to work as a child in these organizations, but we don't have a correct guidance of how to enter these universities, or what is the job, what the job is going to be like after you are graduating from such universities. But believe me, if you're taking up this sector space, it's a very good sector. Not only you will be able to sleep peacefully, but also your conscience will be clear. And again, as we say, like as give back to the society for what you have on. So again, if there are any questions, I would be happy to take any questions. Okay, so Shreyas has asked me, like, how do the placements take place at LSE? They differ from universities. I'm not wrong. If I'm not wrong, how do place for MPA? Okay, perfect. Yeah. In fact, yeah, this is one good question. So this also came as a shock to me. Like in most European universities and American universities, there are no on-campus placements. We are used to this concept of on-campus placements in India, where companies would be coming in and they will be, talking to you through the interviews, but there are no concept calls on campus placements. But at the same time, there is a career department who will be helping you with your CVs, with your cover letters, with your job offers. And at the same time, departments will be organizing career fairs where you will be having an opportunity to talk to the potential employers. And again, in the form of newsletters, you would be given various open employment opportunities where you can apply. But yeah, there are no on-campus placements, and you will have to apply to such companies on a more individual level. But at the same time, yeah, you will get placed. I mean, if you work real hard, and at the same time, if you are clear about what you really want to do, you definitely will get placed. Because interestingly, one of my friends who was working in marketing landed up a job in social policy, because even as a marketing enthusiast, she was only working in such sector that cater to the socio-economic, say for example, graphic designing for an NGO, but at the same time writing communications impact and punchy line for this case. So you just need to have an interest, and at the same time you would want to really work towards it. But yeah, if you're sincere, you definitely will be able to land up a job. So Sahil asked, would a social grad student be benefited from the program? Oh, yes, definitely. Because as I said, like public administration is a mix of political science, sociology, psychology, and economics. So even in sociology, what you try to understand is like, for example, you know that there is this thing called participatory observation, where you basically spend time with a group of people. You try to observe their traits, and you try to observe what works and what doesn't work. So this is very, very much important in public policy, because so whenever we would be making or drafting policies in the future, so you really need to understand that how a certain beneficiaries will react to it. For example, there was this program. I'm actually forgetting which country it was from. It was a CCT, for example, a conditional transfer. Like you would be giving cash after certain amount of after certain conditionalities are met. It basically landed up beneficiaries in a much more negative manner, because the individuals who were running the experiment, they didn't take care of the sociological aspect of how the community will react to certain benefits or certain rules and regulations. So in short, yeah, sociology is definitely very much important, and especially in the artificial intelligence space, you really need sociologists and philosophers to basically tune into the program, because whatever you are doing is you are training a computer on the account of artificial intelligence, and the computer takes many decisions for you. But who will be training such computers? Will it be the economists? They will be the sociologists? They will be the philosophers? So yes, definitely a very important stream to look for. So Shreyas is asking about the GMAT and the GRE requirements. These examinations are optional. However, if wishes to appear for one of these, what is the average score for NPP and NPA? As I again said, like for NPP, it's definitely optional, because at the same time, NPP seeks that you at least have 5 to 6 years of experience. So that is, if you're just a fresh graduate, so that is not the program which you will be looking at. For NPA, getting a score anywhere near 300 and above, it should be fine, because again, what NPA does is it really takes on your professional experience, and at the same time your whatever you are interested in. If you have volunteered into your organization, or if you have volunteered to any other organization, so that's all. But again, at the same time, it is voluntary, so you really don't need to have a GRE or a GPAT score. But having a GRE GMAT score always definitely helps, but again, it's not mandatory. So the Shreya says the websites of renowned universities are silent on the average score. Want to know of LSE? Yeah. So Shreya, again, it depends upon the course which you're taking for. For example, if you're taking for economics, then you definitely need a GRE score of at least 315 plus. That is the MSc in economics. But at the same time, for any other courses, such marks are really, really ambiguous, because in the end, they really take account into the experiences which the individual have followed, and at the same time, like what they really need to do. So I understand the websites are very silent on these, and it can be frustrating for a candidate who has been preparing. But again, it is what it is. So you go to the website at LSE, or you go to the website of any universities. There will be a clear marking whether, first of all, you need a GMAT or a GRE score. Then again, you can check on these discussion websites where most of the college students, they just talk about their GRE and the GMAT. So sorry. So they will be talking about their GRE and the GMAT score. So that's the only way you can talk about. But for NPA, for School of Public Policy, first of all, again, as I said, the score is not mandatory. But if you're getting any score above 300, it's definitely a good score. At the same time, if you have a good professional experience and your SOP and your references are to the point and your grade in undergrad university. So, is the core structure of NPP and NPP way too factual? Would there be monotony at no point? So, it's a big, big no. I mean, Sahil, yeah, trust me when I say this, because when you understand the diversity which is involved in the courses, it can never be monotonous. I mean, you're just working with interest. So, this is the difference between the Indian education and the education which you will be finding here. You're not only working just to get marks, but you're also working so that you can obtain that knowledge and you can apply for a government or for any other social organization. And the best part of MPA is that you can take courses from other departments as well. For example, let me break the 2 years of MPA for you. So MPA first year you do 4 units, and second year you do another 4 units. Now, every semester in the first year, there are 2 semesters, and first semester is divided into 2 units, and the second semester is divided into again 2 units. In the first year, only your 3 units out of the 4 units, you have to take up mandatory subjects which the NPA ask us to take. For example, they are asking you to take certain subjects which they think are necessary for you as a political economist or as a public administration specialist. But your most of the second year and the 1 unit of the first year is absolutely flexible. So if you want, you can even take a course from communications department. You can take a course from economics department. You can even take a course from any other department. For example, what I did is working as a journalist. So what I wanted to do is I really wanted to bridge my experience as working as a communications profession and whatever social policy and public policy knowledge that I would be gaining. So there are various think tanks which work in social policy space where they need such communications professions who can bring forward the work which is being done. So I'm really aiming for such roles, and that was easily done because I was able to take certain courses from the communications department. So even though you are a public policy professional, but you are specializing into a certain department. Then in LSE, you also have the options of doing a specialization. Specialization in MPA can be done in international development. It can be done in economic policy, social impact. For specialization, yes, there will be certain mandatory subjects which you would need to take. But at the same time, you can tailor your degree in any way you want. If you want to take a philosophy course, go ahead, nobody's stopping you. If you want to take a sociology course, go ahead, again, nobody's stopping you. If you want to take an artificial intelligence or data science, that is one course which I've also taken, opted up, again, nobody's stopping you. So yes, it won't be monotonous at any point. In fact, you wouldn't even get time to talk at home. So trust me. Priyank is asking, why selecting students, what does LSE primarily look at? I mean, so this is again one of the trickiest questions, Priyank. I think they look at your appetite to learn, to be very honest. So in SOP, what I would be suggesting, never ever show off that you are an expert in this subject. Yes, talking about your achievements is definitely a way of putting in SOP, but don't overdo it. In the end, you also need to show that you are a keen learner. And whatever happens, you won't be showing off with the knowledge which is happening. In fact, you're just helping out people and showing yourself as a keen learner. In fact, not just for LSE, but even in future, and being humble and having your own unique story. That's, I think, what LSE looks at. Because in the end, if you would see the LSE alumni definitely land up into certain spaces that have the power of changing such societies. So that's the appetite, that's the hunger there which we are looking at in applicants. I mean, if that answers your question, but if it doesn't, please feel forward to send me an email or add me up on LinkedIn, text me up on LinkedIn. So I would be more than happy to even answer these questions even after the session.
I will share your profile to all the interns.
No problem. Thank you. So, Shreyas is asking, is in case a candidate wants to come back to India after pursuing MPP, what could be the avenues for the career perspective? Okay, yeah, that's a very good question, Shreyas, because in fact, a very good question, because that's something which we all are scared of. So, first of all, now let me break down this again into very simple words. If you're taking a Commonwealth scholarship or a Achievement scholarship, you will have to come back to India after a year, after your courses, because what they expect is, if you're taking money from the government, you need to return to your own country and work there. So, yes, again, this can be a very big changing factor. So, this is the reason why I didn't want to take Commonwealth scholarship, because I would be forced to work in India after MP NPP. Even though I really want to get back to India, but I'm not looking to come back to India immediately, because only after a certain amount of experience. Because I think in India there is this difference in ideology where consultants in the government sector are not respected that much as in European countries. I mean, in European countries, especially UK, and talking about United Kingdom, this civil services is run by the consultants who are expert in their fields. But this is not the case in India, because again, it will be a monopoly power by an IAS heading the department, or another state's civil services heading the department, and consultants would not be, I mean, they exist, but their worth is significantly less when you compare it with the European. But yes, if you have significant years of experience working in any European country, working for the government, working in the social impact sector, coming back to India, that changes things. And in India, there are social impact consultancy firms, for example, Dalberg, British Asian Trust, and these all organizations are working. In fact, I'll just write it down in the chat. For example, Dalberg, British Asian Trust. These are the two organizations which are working in the social impact sector, and what basically do they have? These randomized controlled trials, and they are making policies in the form of impact zones, and they are trying to measure the educational outcome or the health outcome. And all the organizations which are sending in the trade, for example, USAID, ICRC, Indian Red Cross, they definitely look for such public policy professionals who would diversify their interests and diversify their inventory of thoughts. So yeah, again, and especially LSE is also a very well recognized degree in India, thanks to again a colonial construct. But yeah, so it's again quite prestigious and recognized. So you won't be having any difficulties finding a job back in India.
For example, I'm not someone who comes from the background of social sciences, per se, sociology or political science or economics. So, what would you suggest would be better for me after my 3 years of graduation to, first do certain internships with certain organizations or work and then apply, or directly apply while interning during my graduation years in such think tanks?
Yeah. So, Vanshika, if I can ask, in what are you specializing in right now? Undergrad?
I'm specializing in English honors and psychology honors, so I'm doing a dual degree.
So again, it's still quite relevant when you compare it with my education, which I had. I had a degree in civil engineering.
Yeah.
Even then.
And then you went to an MBA, and then you went up.
So after that, I did a couple of internships in the journalism sector. I worked as a journalist, and then I decided to do an MBA. So again, what I would suggest is having experience with couple of internships. Couple of internships is definitely very much relevant. It gives your CV a specific twist. It gives a direction to your CV that even after your English honors and psychology honors, you know what you really want to do. And maybe, for example, telling your own story in SOP. Every field needs good communicators. Every field needs good psychologists who can understand certain conditions. So maybe you did this degree because in the end you really want to empathize and at the same time be a good communicator with individuals who really need the help, or when you're working with the societies where you want to measure the social impact. So the story can be woven in any manner, but at the same time, yes, you're very safe. And to answer your question directly, it wouldn't matter. So I would suggest you start applying for the first year itself. Even if you get rejected, you get experience of the process. But at the same time, keep on doing internships. And if you're able to work in any NGO at the same time, for example, the Teach for India Fellowship, definitely it's gonna help in your CV. But what I would suggest is you apply for the first year itself, and then keep on learning in the process.
All right, thank you so much.
So, is there any other question? Okay, so Sahil is like, what's the scope of someone whose niche areas like in gender and career policy is considered? Sahil, in fact, thank you very much for bringing up this question, because again, as I said, like in India, we hardly talk about these policies, which again will be very different in like European Union or at the same time American countries. So I really cannot talk about India per se, because you know what things are in India. But if you're working in gender and queer policies, it's a very good niche to work in European countries. In every organization in UK or in Europe or in USA, they seek diversity. I mean, okay, I wouldn't talk about USA, but yeah, only talking about Europe and United Kingdom. So every application, it seeks diversity, and at the same time, they need individuals to come up, and work in their organizations. So yes, it is considered as a mainstream in policy space, because at the same time, you are building a space, and in fact, not just gender and queer policies. In fact, people with special needs and at the same time, specially able individuals. I mean, imagine, for example, if there are 100 like metro stations in London, out of which only 50 or 60 are accessible to persons on wheelchair. And still there is such a big policy group which are lobbying the government to make it 100% accessible to individuals who are on wheelchair. So there are many pressure groups which exist, and there are many think tanks, there are many NGOs that specifically work for gender and queer policies and persons with special needs, and it's definitely a good space to work in. Why you chose LSE? India, we have this IISPPR, Kautilya, Azim, Prem University. So, first of all, because honestly, I was really tired of the Indian setup and the Indian education. And honestly, I really didn't want to work in India in the initial years. Because what my thought process was like, I really needed more diversification in my thoughts, and at the same time, I really wanted to have a more comprehensive understanding of the world policies. Because again, as I said, there is a power of balance which is being maintained by certain organizations, certain countries, and again. So it's a tough decision, but it also becomes a matter of a personal choice. Like I really want to come back to India after a couple of years so that my expertise can be used in the government. And the second main, I think, the primary reason was because of the lobby of the Indian Administrative Services and the bureaucratic services, because you really cannot do anything without the permissions. And for example, if you really want to hold a good department, or at the same time you really want to do anything very important, it becomes difficult because of the bureaucracy which is involved in Indian politics. But if you really want to have a social impact, you are at the mercy of the bureaucrats, you are at the mercy of the ministers, and it sometimes becomes very frustrating and very difficult. So what I wanted to do is work for an international organization, but at the same time be involved in a project which works in South Asia or India, and at the same time have a direct impact where I can surpass the Babu culture or the bureaucratic culture. So that was my own personal understanding. But again, as I said, it can be a very personal understanding, and so whatever you pick, it's if you're working towards your goal, it's definitely going to be beneficial. Perfect. So, I mean, if there are any other questions, even if you have any other questions after the session, as I think my profile will be shared with you, my email address will be shared with you, so please shoot up with any of the questions, not only just now, even if whenever you are submitting your application for the exam, for your admission. If there is anything you are stuck with, or if there are any doubts, if you want to know about the living expenses in London, especially if you want to know about the university culture, anything it is, just drop me an email. I would be more than happy to interact with you all and guide you with whatever will be in my capacity. I think that will be all from my side. Also, Wajahat, is there anything which you want me to speak about?
Yeah, LVJOT, we will talk later after. So, if you have any question, just ask. Otherwise, you can leave the meeting.
I think I'm good. I think I'm good. But and thank you so much, Wajahat, and at the same time, International Institute of Public Policy. You guys are doing a very good job, but at the same time, you're trying to give an ideology among the students where most of the people are very distracted, because public policy can be a very vague sphere. So just as a concluding remarks, what I would be saying, again, public policy is a very vague space. So you can be a specialist in artificial intelligence, you can be a specialist in public policy in social economy. At the same time, you can be a specialist in public policy for your geographical understandings. For example, like your health economics, at the same time your urban economics. So public policy is a very vast space, and it has a piece of pie for all of you to be included in. So in the end, don't be scared of your previous experience. Instead, take it as a strength, dissect it into the form and produce it and in the form, so that you are able to use it in a way where the other individuals wouldn't be having that experience. For example, I'm very proud of being an engineer, because with my thought of ideology, which I can contribute right now, it really helps. I'm able to dissect certain conditions according to a manner in most of the other public officials won't be able to do. So be proud of whoever you are, and at the same time, don't be afraid. Just try, because anyway you're not getting it right now. But what if you're trying, you still have the probability of achieving something. So yeah, keep on trying. That will be my last words.
LVJOT, please be there.
Yeah.
Other people can leave the meeting, because I was just trying to talk to LVJOT about the organization. Other people can leave the meeting.